Let's, Aisha, talk about the entire metal story. So much to talk about. We've been seeing the super cycle of commodities, right? And now you're seeing aluminium, which is getting a lot of sheen. Peter McGuire, Chief Executive Officer from XM Australia, now joining us live and closing trades. Hi, Peter. Good afternoon. Can we first begin our conversation on metals with what we're seeing as far as aluminium goes? What do you make of that?
Well, good afternoon and welcome. Greetings from Sydney. A couple of quick things. We've had such an enormous boom to the upside from that 1800 handle going back to October. 9 months in, and here we are at the 25 to 2600. So it's been a very, very strong move to the upside. Been swept up with that global economy story. Inflation is certainly a key driver as far as price, and also industrial demand and the restocking of inventory. So that overall storyline is very, very strong. And how much further can it go? I think there's probably further upside this year.
Sure. Peter, also wanted to understand, aside of aluminum, what are the kind of supply issues that the markets all over the globe are facing? Because there also seems to be a bit of a demand-supply mismatch here, which is leading to the kind of move that you're seeing across metals.
Well, that's exactly right. And as we know from supply lines and mining, you've got close downs as far as the lockdowns and what impact that's had to mining companies. Then you've got sea freight. All of those linkages need to be examined and understood, because that is certainly where you can have disruptions, not only from the demand picture, but certainly from the producer trying to have their product available to market. So this has been an incredible year when we put our mind back to what we've experienced since this time last year, not only with price, but more importantly with all of those linkages and examining each component of the consumption chain. And I sit here hopefully as we unwind and unlock unlock certainly the Eurozone and other key markets, that we're on the return to greatness, and this commodity cycle can continue its trajectory northwards.
Sure. So looking at the demand potential right now, Peter, what is it that you can tell us about, A, the pricing outlook going forward, and what's the kind of deficit that we're staring at? Because that's going to escalate and push the prices furthermore.
Absolutely. So as far as demand and as far as pricing, we're sitting at that LME price just on 2,600 a metric tonne. I feel as though that you're possibly going to take a 3,000 handle out. I'm not suggesting when, but I wouldn't be surprised, certainly by the end of year. And the reasoning for that is, first off, the continuance as far as industrial demand and infrastructure stories that are sweeping the globe from the rebuilding of nations, and certainly with the Biden administration and their infrastructure plans. Secondly, of course, that global demand and everything coming out of China. So that's an uptick on both sides of the story. And then the thirdly, of course, is we're seeing, I think, a return in favour of the base metals and some of those and some of the other metals, quite simply because they were underperformed and underwhelmed for a number of years in the late 2015s to 2018 sort of thing, and they've certainly ratcheted. We're getting back up to those prices experienced in 2018 for aluminium, and it's just onward and upward, I think, for pricing at the moment.
So Peter, when you talk about the deficit, the understanding would be that as economies come out of COVID, they're going to see a lot of pump priming, there's going to be a lot more infrastructure activity. So how is this delta? This delta will only get bigger, and then therefore won't that continue to push up prices?
Yeah, well, it will continue to get bigger, and then naturally, there comes a point in time that the markets, I think, do become exhausted to the upside as far as price. And I mentioned earlier that inflation is a big concern. I think it's a big concern globally, and the Fed's getting their mind around it. When you're seeing some of these numbers, it's quite frightening, actually. So how that plays as far as 22, I think price will continue to uptick. The inflation story will drive prices higher from all points as far as energy costs and everything else that goes into the whole argument as far as inflation. And how does that impact? If we don't derail in the latter part of 21 and 22, and if we return to normal, then I'm pretty sure that you're going to see stronger for longer prices. But from what we've all lived through in the last year, no one this time of last year could have forecast what we've experienced. And the future is one thing that I'm very sure that I haven't met anyone in my short life that has been into the future and can come back and tell me what they're going to experience.
Okay, Peter, thanks so much for joining us all the way from Sydney. There's Peter McGuire for you with an outlook as far as the metal sector goes and how that story is panning out, the super cycle of commodities. We'll take a short commercial break. There's a lot more to talk about on the other side. We are entering the last 60 minutes as well of trade.